All right, so what we're about to discuss today would be a lot easier for you to comprehend if you look at it from the perspective of the fact that there's globalists out there who are in the process of setting up what they want, which is a one world government, right? And what that means is that what we are witnessing is the rise of the Antichrist kingdom. Now, in order to bring that about, they must get Western civilization to submit to their plan. Okay? And the crown jewel in that plan is the United States of America. We need to get a country that was founded on freedom to comply. And once we can do that, then we can move forward with our plan so that every nation in the world will come under our control. This is what the globalists are hoping for. This is what they're desiring. They want a one world government, one world economy, a one world religion, which we know will eventually come under the sway of a one world leader. So please understand that in order to accomplish that goal, they must have control, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the goal of the Antichrist, to have complete control. But you have to remember, we're not fighting against flesh and blood, as Paul wrote, but against rulers and against powers and against the forces of darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places, right? So our enemy isn't a Democrat. Our enemy is not a Republican. It's not our brother or sister in the Lord. It's Satan, our adversary. And right now, he is behind the scenes manipulating people to do his will. Now, I believe Satan thinks he's on the 10-yard line. It's 10 yards and goal to go. Now, for those of you who are not football fans, he's right there. He's ready to punch this in for a touchdown. And he's excited to see what's going on in the world. The division, the hatred, the fighting, the chaos, all of that brings delight to him. But we don't serve the God of confusion. We serve the God of order, of peace, and of love. And the more I think about it, the thing that bothers me the most about all of this, what's going on in the world, all that's being forced upon us, is that I know it's part of the Antichrist kingdom. And that's what bothers me the most about this. The Antichrist, whose spirit has been at work in this world for some time now. I don't want to be a part of all that Satan's doing in the world to usher in the emergence of the Antichrist. Because he's conditioning the world right now to be under control of the Antichrist. First, they created a crisis. A crisis they couldn't let go to waste, right? That's what Rob Emanuel said. When we get a hold of a crisis, we can't let it go to waste. And so, because they created a crisis, they also came up with their own solution to get us out of the crisis. And they said, if you follow these rules, if you just comply, you'll be safe. The first set of rules, of course, was social distancing, right? Then restricted gatherings. Then came the executive orders. People were forced to stay home. Churches closed. Businesses closed. Then there's the vaccine. More control. In some places, you can't eat at a restaurant. You can't go out in public unless you have a vaccine card. People have lost their jobs because of this, because they don't want to be forced to be vaccinated. You know, I've always said I am not anti-vaccine. I am anti-being forced to get a vaccine. To me, there's something wrong with something that they must force you to take that's supposedly good for you, right? It's like my mother trying to give me castor oil. It's good for you. No, there's nothing good about that. So next thing that will happen, and you have to understand this is all about control, right? The next thing that is going to happen is a social rating system. And who knows where we go from there? Because the enemy is not going to stop at anything until he gains complete control. And the more control the enemy gains, the more freedoms we lose. And all of that is being set into place for the day when the Antichrist will come and rule and reign on this earth. And we all know that that's only going to be temporary until Jesus finally comes to rule and reign on this earth. But when that day comes, the Antichrist is going to walk into a system that's already there for him. He's going to require that everyone take a mark or starve to death. He's going to require that everyone bow down and worship a statue or be put to death. And there are those who will joyfully take that mark. And without hesitation, they'll bow to that statue because they are under the control of the Antichrist. Because they have been conditioned all along to fall for this. So, we do these updates, and hopefully we'll begin to do more of these as time goes on. But we do these updates to prepare you for the prophecy that we may see as believers happen right before our very eyes. Since we don't know when Jesus will return, we don't know how much of this we're going to see, so we need to be prepared for whatever comes our way. And hopefully, instead of frightening you, it motivates you to be about your Father's business, to share the message of the gospel. So today, we're going to talk about something called the ESG score. What's in your wallet? What is an ESG score? Well, it's a credit rating of sorts. The E stands for environment, the S stands for social, and the G stands for governance. Now, currently, there's a lot of major international and regional banks using this system to determine who they're going to lend money to. Now, if you wonder why stores like Walmart, for instance, support the LGBTQ community and all the plus genders, right? It's because it affects their ESG score. So how does your ESG score work? An organization can be assessed based on that score, and that will tell investors whether or not they want to invest in that company or not. And so they look at their carbon neutrality, that's the E. Whether they have equal pay for all genders, that's the S. And whether they practice corporate transparency, that's the G, right? So let's take a look at some examples, and so we can understand a little better of what the criteria is for this ESG score. First, environment. What kind of impact does a company have on the environment? This can include a company's carbon footprint, toxic chemicals involved in its manufacturing process, and sustainability efforts that make up its supply chain. Social. How does the company improve its social impact, both within the company and the broader community? Social factors include everything from LGBTQ plus equality, racial diversity in both the executive suite and the staff overall, and inclusion programs and hiring practices. It even looks at how a company advocates for social good in the wider world beyond its limited sphere of business. And listen, you have to read between the lines here, right? We're talking about the companies that support Black Lives Matter. We're talking about the companies that support the Green New Deal. Those are the companies whose ESG scores improve. Governance. How does the company's board and management drive positive change? Governance includes everything from issues surrounding executive pay to diversity in leadership, as well as how well the leadership responds and interacts with shareholders. So remember, we're heading towards a socialist form of government, right? So the more the executives make and the less the employees make, the lower your ESG score is going. Because we all should make the same. I mean, from the guy who started the business to the guy who just came aboard last week, right? You should all make the same amount of money. Okay. I know I'm a capitalist, I'm sorry. Listen, all the big multinational banks have already started scoring corporations and other businesses with this ESG score. This ESG score is already in practice, and you and I are next. And some of you remember the Bank of America when they turned over customers' accounts to the FBI so that the FBI could track who was in Washington, D.C. the day that the Capitol was breached, right? So they could question anyone that was around that area at that time. Did you know that they got a higher ESG score for that? Now, what they did was unconstitutional, but that doesn't matter because the globalists hate the Constitution. The Constitution gets in their way. So you have to understand, this is not a Democrat versus Republican fight. It's not. It's not even left versus right. This is globalist versus the Western world and freedom. And tragically, most of the leaders of the Western world are on board with this. They want globalization. Countries like Canada, like Australia, England, and all of Europe are on board with this. Could the United States be next? That's certainly their goal. We're certainly the prize. So, credit rating versus ESG score. Now, I'm going to read from an article in the Impact Investor from July 16, 2021. In business, ESG issues have been on the docket for quite some time. Not only do stakeholders pay attention to the effect the company has on the environment, third parties and even the government is also keeping track. In addition to creating this platform, their leading guidelines are also getting an update. It includes new rules that will tie, listen, your individual ESG score to the ability to secure lending. In many cases, people are generally unaware that they even have an ESG score, unless they happen to come across it in the process of doing something totally unrelated. For example, customers who have accounts with Merrill Lynch will be able to view your ESG score. Now, this may sound like tales out of China. It's a system that is, in fact, being implemented in the United States and soon many other nations. It is similar to a credit score when it comes to an individual ESG score, but instead of rating creditworthiness, it rates a person's ESG risk. And there are a few things that will determine your personal ESG score, many of which can be discovered via your regular credit report and other public records. Your purchase history, also your sales history, will have a dramatic effect on your ESG ratings. Your charities that you support will also increase or decrease your ESG score. The purpose behind each person being assigned an individual ESG score is to help reward actions that will help move the world towards sustainability. While there are not currently any downsides to having an ESG score, regardless how high or low, there is going to come a time where too low of a score can result in denials of loans, services, similar to the way credit scores currently function. For now, ESG scores for individuals are used as a tracking tool for companies to monitor behavior. Some things you may need to know to calculate your own personal ESG score: a list of your investments, a general calculation of how many miles you travel via car, that old gas-guzzling car that you drive, and how often you use public transportation, the amount of energy you use each month, electricity, gas, water, etc., your cryptocurrency profile, your food consumption numbers, your organic and environmental effort. And again, you got to read between the lines, right, where this is headed. If you play ball, if you comply, if you do as they wish, your ESG score will go up. If you don't do it, your ESG score will go down. It's pretty simple. And although at the present time it will not adversely or favorably affect you, it's coming. It's coming to where it will favorably or adversely affect you. So in the near future, if you want to purchase a home or a car or any other big ticket purchase, your ESG score could determine your rates, or even if you're eligible to purchase those things. Factors like what charities you gave to will affect your score. For instance, a charity that promotes sustainability, and you wouldn't believe how many of these are online. Just type in charities that support the Green New Deal. It's unbelievable. Your credit score will go up if you donate to those charities. But if you donate to charities that don't believe in climate change because it's a hoax perpetuated against the world, then your score is going to go down. Listen, God controls the weather. The last time I looked, God controls the weather, not man. And no matter how many organizations pop up to help save the world, God's in control. Everything is going to continue to change as God commands it. There will always be and always have been cycles of weather, right? Warm and hot, hot and cold. There's always been that way. Man is not going to change that. Should we be good stewards of what God has blessed us with? Absolutely. We need to take care of this planet, but not worship it. And that's exactly what they're looking to do. And Paul said that there would come a time when that would happen, where they traded the truth of God for a lie. So they worshiped and served the things of God instead of the Creator himself, who is worthy of eternal praise. Amen? Amen. So if you want a good ESG score, and you like taking 10 minutes or longer showers, you're going to cut that back to 5 minutes or less. Start set a timer in the shower. See how long a shower you take. You'd be amazed. What do you like to keep your thermostat at home in the cold weather?
60.
60? Listen, you've got to have a great ESG score. 68 to 70 while at home. And when you're away, you have to drop it down to 65. Or while you're sleeping, it has to be at 65. If you want to hog up all the energy and you drive a gasoline engine car too much, you're going to pay the price in a lower ESG score. It's going to adversely affect your credit rating. And so we're headed for a social credit rating system like the one that they use in China currently. Have you guys been up on that? Their social credit rating is going to be used as a template for the rest of the world. So, how do they know what people are up to in China? Well, first of all, they got 50 million cameras everywhere, right? You can't walk out your front door without being on camera. You probably can't go in your kitchen without being on camera. But they're gathering data through all of that. And that data is what they use to either favorably reward you or punish you. How do you think they're gathering all that data? What do you think 5G is for? 5G gives them the ability to collect all this data. It's the fundamental building block of the social credit system, data. And through that system, through central, regional, and municipal governments, even citizens, who they call actors in this, but are really just informants, they're snitches. And where I come from, snitches get stitches, right? But the algorithms that big tech uses are all part of this process. They use those algorithms to know where you are, what you're purchasing, what you're doing. It's crazy. You could be talking on the phone to someone with your laptop open and talk about, let's say, camping. I want to go camping this weekend. Then when you sit down at your laptop, guess what ads pop up? All kinds of camping supplies and materials, right? They're listening. They really are. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but they're picking up on this. This is how this is all set up to be. Based partly, but not entirely, on this data, lists are made. Lists are made that would either punish you or reward you for what you're doing. China's social credit system ranks citizens and punishes them with reduced internet speeds, right? Flight bans. If the Communist Party determines that you are untrustworthy, you are not able to fly. The social credit system, first announced in 2014, is an important component of the socialist market economy system and the social governance system that aims to reinforce the idea that keeping trust is glorious and breaking trust is disgraceful, according to a 2015 government document. The rankings are decided by China's Economics Planning Team, the National Development and Reform Commission, the People's Bank of China, and the Chinese court system. Interesting. According to the South China Morning Post. Now there's two words there that I read that you need to pay attention to. Those words are social and governance, because they are key components of our ESG system. So the article goes on to say, the system can be used for individual people, but also for companies and government organizations. Like private credit scores, a person's social score can move up and down depending upon their behavior. Other potential punishable offenses include spending too long playing video games. Did you hear that, guys? Wasting time on frivolous purchases. Wasting money, rather, on frivolous purchases and time. Posting on social media. Be careful what you post. The punishments can come in a few forms, like travel bans, slow internet, and being banned from higher education. China has already started punishing people by restricting travel, including banning them from flights. According to the foreign policy, credit systems monitor whether people pay their bills on time, much like financial credit trackers. But also, they ascribe a moral dimension to this. Your kids could miss out on good jobs and good schools to go to. 17 people who refused to carry out military service in 2017 were barred from enrolling in higher education or applying for high school or continuing their studies, the Beijing News reported. And in July 2018, a Chinese university denied an incoming student his spot because the student's father had a bad social credit score, failing to repay a loan. Dog lovers, your dog could be taken away from you. The eastern Chinese city of Jinan started enforcing a social credit system for dog owners in 2017, whereby pet owners get points deducted if the dog is walked without a leash or causes public disturbances. Those who lost all their points had their dogs confiscated and had to take a test on regulations required for pet ownership. Wow. Notice there's no cats in China.
I was going to say.
Look at you started on cats. Naming and public shaming is another tactic. In 2016, government notices encouraged companies to consult a blacklist before they hired employees or issued contracts. Listen, the kingdom of the Antichrist is being built right in front of our very eyes. This is the foundation that's being set up for a one-world government, a one-world leader, and a one-world economy, and a one-world religion. This is the globalist dream. And we're witnessing these systems slowly being put into place. And an ESG rating system or a social rating system is just another way for them to control the people of this world. A world in which the Antichrist will declare, or demand rather, allegiance to himself. Listen, I know all this is daunting, especially for the young people. I know it's overwhelming. It can be even depressing and discouraging to even talk about this stuff. But please understand that prophecy is not meant to scare us. It is meant to prepare us. So I want you to allow the words of Paul to bring some comfort to you today before you leave here. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who are asleep. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. So all of that we're seeing in the world around us, the social, the racial, the economic strife, the rumors of wars, the control, the rush to bring this world into submission is all part of the rise of the Antichrist. And it only can mean one thing, that the return of Jesus is close. And I've said this ad nauseum. If we're seeing the shadows of what's going to occur in the tribulation now, how close can the real thing be? Jesus said, when you see these things increasing, becoming more prevalent, look up. Look up. Know that the return of the Lord is near. And that should excite us, not frighten us. Amen? Amen. All right, so you guys want to hang out? We can talk about what we just talked about, or you can end this.